Como guys, my name is JBuilds and welcome to LEGO Digital Designer. LEGO Digital Designer is a pretty old program created by LEGO to help LEGO set designers and fans build creations they wanted to without having to buy the bricks in real life. It's a free program, but it's a pretty old one, so it's going to look low quality from YouTube compression and just the fact that it's a pretty old program in and of itself. In this two-part mini-series, I'll be building a small sort of town road where I'll have a few shops, a few stores, a few things that I'm going to be putting together. The next episode probably will come out maybe next week around the same day. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll just sort of begin. The first thing I'm building here is a 7-Eleven inspired mini mart where, it's just got a few things on the shelves, these little shelves that I've built using some tiles, and it's just going to look sort of like something like a gas station type store, but I'm not going to be building the gas station on it. Right now what I'm putting together is a small area where you would maybe make food, make a small meal that you would find inside like a gas station, rest stop, one of those low quality things that you would find. And on the shelves there, I'm putting together just a mix and match of random parts that I find, just anything that would work, any piece that might make the shelves look sort of cluttered and sort of like they have stuff on them. Where, since this is LEGO Digital Designer, they don't have all of the pieces that you would in modern day LEGO. So I'm limited to a few pieces to build the actual building. On the inside here, I'm building right now the sort of cash register, and I tried to go for something that would look like sort of a cash register, very minimalistic, and then right here I'm using, if some of the people who watch my Minecraft videos, they know that I like scattered carpet. I'm using some scattered carpet there at the condiments area. Although carpet probably isn't the best choice with the ketchup and mustard right there, hanging off the side. Next, I'm kind of doing the framing, sort of putting together the doors, the windows, the walls, and you'll notice that I left the back side exposed because I'm trying to build these buildings sort of like a real LEGO set designer would build them without, a back so that kids can fit their hands inside, theoretical kids, because I didn't really build this in real life, I just built it in Digital Designer. But I'm going to be using techniques that I noted while building actual LEGO sets, because there are certain things that LEGO set designers do again and again that catches my eye, and probably caught a few other people's eye. So the next piece that I'm going to be putting in is the roof, and the way I'm putting in the roof is I'm using mostly tiles, and tiles are like plates. For example, a plate is those dark tan pieces that I used on the shelves, but tiles are different where they don't have the studs on the top side. So on the sidewalk, I use tiles because the tiles are flat and it looks like a sidewalk. Right there, those blue pieces are tiles. And the reason that I'm using tiles instead of plates is because if I were to build this in real life, using the tiles would allow me to take off the roof pretty easily since there's only 4 studs connecting it. Then I tried to use an old technique where you put the pin inside the bottom of the brick, but that doesn't work on Digital Designer. You'll also notice that I added some little supports on the edges there, which I'm going to try to copy on the other side, but I wasn't really able to copy it just because of the way that it was set up there, so I had to flip the entire base plate upside down and do it while it was upside down. Once I got the pieces on, I selected the entire thing, flipped it back right side up, and put it together. So it was looking pretty great, and I decided to add one of those signs that you would see from the street, similar to a billboard. I added like a billboard thing on there, deleted the excess on the sides, and then I put together a small clip on the side, a piece with the studs on the side, using snot techniques. Snot is just when you build with studs on the side. And then I also used a different technique called locking, where I locked in place the slop pieces and those 1x1 studs using the 2x6 on top and using the billboard area there, the 4x6. I then just added some lights like you would see on a sign, just for sort of that extra detail that would be nice. And then I decided to give it some charm by adding some minifigures into the mix. But since this is Digital Designer, and Digital Designer is a pretty old program, it doesn't have many of the new LEGO minifigure torsos or heads, so I had to go with some of the older ones, many of which are outdated and don't work as well, but they still did the trick. I have a cashier wearing a sweatshirt. I have a person with a yellow suit that I thought looked good, a fireman, because most LEGO sets have sort of a police officer, a fireman, and then a kid, because it's LEGO, you gotta have that childish perspective. And then I took out some of the pieces from the sidewalk, and I put together some of the same tiles with one stud on the top, which allows minifigures to actually stand on it, and it looks like there's just standing on the sidewalk, but they're locked in place. It's a really nice trick, and I use it in real life when I'm actually building LEGO, and it's a cool trick, and it works very well. And then over there, as I was fiddling around with the fireman, I forgot that his hat kind of was moved out to the side, so I had to mess around with that. And then I put in the cashier and a few people on the inside. So it looks really nice, and I think it turned out really well. But that's only the first build. Next, I'll be building a restaurant, and I already got the sidewalk in and the base plate. And this restaurant is going to be a more fancy restaurant, and it's going to actually have 2 rooms instead of just be a 1-room build. For a second there, I forgot to have the back open because I was building it like I would build an actual building. But I do have a sort of area here where I have the kitchen separated from the actual dining room, which is really nice because usually most people when building LEGO try to build with just 1 room, and that also goes for sandbox games like Minecraft. Most houses end up being just 1 room unless you're a pretty advanced builder. But I decided to go ahead and put together a 2-room build with a kitchen. In the back of the kitchen, they have a pan on a grill, and I have a small area there with a cup. And then, of course, I had to put together some of the classic LEGO seats, which are used in nearly every LEGO set. At put together 2 smaller tables, and with the tables I did a sort of checkerboard pattern, but you can only kind of realize that it's a checkerboard pattern once you take a look at the booth, where it kind of becomes more obvious as there are the actual checkers in the booth there. And I'm also sort of adding some little details on each table. Then I went ahead and put in the door frames, and I made them white because white is a more kind of regal color when you're looking at these sort of buildings for framing. And then I put together these little pieces on the side here. They have the divots in them. I can't remember what they're called, but I put them there because it sort of looks like curtains. They look sort of like curtains or shutters on the building, and it adds a bit of detail that you normally don't get in Lego. And then of course I had to break apart the kitchen from the dining hall and then put together the roof piece. And I added some sort of beams to make it look like it had structure, and put together the rest of the roof. And then I used the same tiling technique that I used on the mini mart, but I did that after I built some minifigures to put together. So I put together a waiter minifigure, and then a man and a woman who are both there waiting for their food at the store. So the waiter, they didn't really have the exact torso piece I was looking for, because again, this is Digital Designer, you can't expect that. They don't have every piece, but I did get a sort of good looking waiter uniform, and I added a little hat to make it look like he was there. They didn't actually have the chef's hat in this version of Lego Digital Designer, which was kind of mind-boggling to me. I thought they would have the chef's hat, but it turns out they didn't. And then I started messing around with trying to get these Lego minifigures into a sitting position so that I could put them in the chairs inside the restaurant. This guy is going in the booth, and this lady I decided to put out in front of the store, so that I had spaces to fill up in that area. I then gave the lady a wine glass because she deserves it, and moved on to putting together that same tiling technique that I used on the mini mart, which is put together those tiles on the top and then add a few studs so that it's easy to pick up if you were to actually pick it up. And then I added an area on the top, a ledge, because that would give it a bit of a difference from the mini mart in height, which is sort of something that it desperately needed. It needed a bit of a difference and a bit more foundation. I also added some little pieces on the top to, emphasize the AC, the chimneys, the radiators, because it is a restaurant. The last build here I'm going to speed up a bit because it's not really as exciting, and I also did use some red pieces here because that is similar to what an actual Lego set designer would do, because they don't want to use any color that is more expensive to make than they need. If it's hidden, you use a less expensive color. That's just kind of a rule of thumb. You don't really have to use golden pieces underneath your golden carpet if nobody's going to see it because of the carpet. So this build, it looks and it feels like something you would see on the ocean side. It looks and feels like sort of a lighthouse house, like the house beside the lighthouse. I did that specifically with the white pieces, the grays, and the faded colors, the faded, more bright colors. This is actually going to be a 2-floor build, so the build is going to have 2 floors, hence the name a 2-floor build. And I also gave it a nice little desk there. It's going to be like an apartment building style thing, is what I'm mostly going for. And then I added the stairs. I gave the stairs support, which it doesn't need in Digital Designer, but you know, that's always kind of a nice thing to have. And then I decided to put together a more faded tile on the top, just to give it that sort of, that feeling that it needed, the structure. Because if you have a specific tile on the top, then it gives it a feeling of structure. Like sometimes, like when I took my building to Brick Fair last year, I didn't have the specific tiles that I wanted, because I used that idea of using the tiles so that you could pick up each floor and the roof, so that I could show people the interior of my buildings. But I didn't always have the correct tiles, so sometimes I would just use whatever tile I had, and it kind of subtly ruined the look of the build. But thank you guys for watching, and please subscribe for part 2, because I will be finishing all these builds in a part 2.